and go to that next level. And it's not like you didn't enjoy and love those people. They're still part of your life. They're part of your story, but you're like, well, this is where I'm going.
Yep.
And if you don't want to go there, that's fine, but I'm going to be going this way.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect analogy too, because you can't just disconnect one clip here and leave the other tethered down there. You got to, yeah, exactly, because it'll continually pull you back. You've got to actually disconnect both and get it over here.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Levelin Up podcast with Brigham Blackham. I'm so grateful to have my friends Laura and Kip Brown here. We are tuning in all the way from Washington, which is exciting. And I'm over here in Colorado. So thankful to be able to talk about not just how we can become transactional engineers, but how when you are willing to make something a lifestyle, that you can totally see that you can add value in so many different points of your life. We have people in my life like Kip and Laura that have changed the way that I see things in multiple ways. It created reassociations in so many different ways. Now, you guys are part of the, tell us the name of your business one more time. It was Dynamic Trio Duo. What was it called?
The Life Design Duo.
Yes, Life Design Duo. I knew it was right there. It was right on the tip of my tongue. Life Design Duo. Man, do they absolutely just emanate that light. And I'm so grateful to have you guys on today. It is a pleasure to be in your space. I'm so excited to hear a little bit more of your backstory, some of the ways that we can become that transactional engineer. And we're gonna just have a great conversation today. So how are you guys doing? How are you doing?
We're fantastic. As you said, it's being able to live the lifestyle, to be able to really truly get in and where your passions lie. And sometimes that's a journey. It doesn't always happen immediately with the first thought that pops into your head.
Or how you think it should go.
Exactly. But it's the journey that goes along with it. And if you always keep in mind that you're following your passion, what you're good at, or, the things that resonate with you, so that you're not always exhausted by the process, because you're trying to fight against the wave, if you will, instead of rolling with the wave and being able to figure out how to build it, then it really truly is that process that, keeps you going and grows something really well for you.
Yeah, you got to be able to kind of ebb and flow with it. What you had that saying that was just brilliant the other day. It was what life tends to life you or something like that.
Yeah. No matter what you do and all your great plans, there's always a wrinkle that gets thrown in the mix. Sometimes the wrinkle is a full-on page sheet change, and other times it's just a little bit, but life does tend to make sure that you are committed to what you're doing and give you a check-in every once in a while to make sure that is still where you want to go.
Exactly. Oh man, I'm so grateful to have a little bit of time with you guys today. Tell us a little bit, not just what it is that you do, but why you do what you do. Because I think this is really key, and I love this part of your story. Tell us why you are so passionate about creating a life by design.
Yeah, well, there's really kind of 2 or 3 main key points to this. And so I'll tell my perspective, Laura can tell hers, and then there's a together perspective as well, because each one of us is a little bit different, but together there's a dynamic there as well. So the biggest part of me is, I was traveling. I was an IT professional for a very long time, like 25 plus years. Yeah. And I spent my career kind of being that important person on the project, that single throat to choke. So I ended up, as a result of that, being at every client site for every important meeting, all of the decisions that were going on, all of the contracts that were going on, sales from delivery. And it took me all over the world. And what I found myself doing was flying and spending 200 plus nights a year in a Marriott, flying a million plus miles on multiple different airlines. It was crazy nuts busy all the time. And what I realized was my family was learning while I was off doing all of these things and making money and getting everything ready to go and providing for the family. I thought they were learning to live their life without me in it. And that really struck a chord when I finally tuned into that and realized that, wait a minute, all of this dedicated work that I was doing, driving towards getting to a point where we were sustaining our life and all that kinds of things, all of that was in lieu of or at the detriment of my family and our family time together. So that was kind of the wake up call that I had, that, hey, I better start changing the way I'm doing things, or that they will completely X me out of the life at that point in time. I wouldn't be there for it. So that was kind of my start to why we needed to get out there and make a change, and really started to go down a different path. And then I wanted to help people. I ran into so many people that are in a similar boat. They're just busy all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was on the other end of that, right? I was the one introducing myself as a married single mother of 3. I had 3 small kids, various special needs that were arising. We had worked out that it was like, you know what, I will support you 100% in the direction you want to go, but I need to be there for my children when we decided to start a family and be able to do that. And that was a big piece of it. But ultimately, we wanted to be together, right? We wanted to be able to do family together. I wasn't planning on doing this whole family thing by myself. And so when he found the struggle of how to exit out of his corporate existence, right? In the sense, because once you're in corporate, it's just evolves and evolves and evolves. There's never a real way to get out unless you make a clean severance, to some degree, type of scenario. Like, you have to completely change. Otherwise, you'll just stay in that perpetual cycle forever. Yeah. And it was that struggle, right, that he was having, that he couldn't figure out a way to get out. And, for me, as somebody who is very creative and loves to solve problems and do all of those things, that whole director executive thing.
Yes.
I was like, well, let me go out and find a solution for this. And we had been doing solutions for paying off debt. We had been solutions for finances. We had been doing solutions on how do you travel with 3 kids across the world and, match up, but, and then jobs would pull him away, and guess what? I would be left
stuck there.
I'd be stuck
in a foreign country,
not knowing how to drive, not knowing how to get around with 3 small kids that I have to feed at the new, nuance and all of those types of things. Wow. But it was that play of me going out and trying to find out what ultimately where my passions lie. What did I want to do? Because if I was going to do something, I was at least going to do something that really truly spoke to me, right? That I could get behind and not just be doing something. And so that was where the journey started into our real estate. We'd always loved real estate. Yeah. For once,
actually, we work together well.
We work together well in real estate, which is odd for couples. Typically, usually, there's a lot of conflict on how to do all of that. But
not saying we don't have the conflicts out there. I mean, like, it's still a marriage.
he tells me what he likes and absolutely what is going to not fly, and then I've got to creatively figure out how to get my like and want in there. And guess what? It ends up better in the long run than what it did before. But that's where it started, right? Because for me, I felt like that was an avenue that if something should happen to him, he was traveling a lot. If something should happen, terrorist attacks were happening a lot at that moment in time. Yeah. And there was some close calls actually with where he was and what he was doing with some of the international terrorist attacks that were happening. And so I had a wake-up call when I started looking into our finances. We had been doing the save up, diversify.
Max out that 401k plan,
talk to a financial advisor, sit down and really map this all out. But when I sat down with our financial advisor and said, okay, where are we at if something should happen? And she's like, okay, well, you would have your 3 kids' colleges paid for, you would pay off your house, and then you would have 4 years to live. Yeah. Well, I had been out of the workforce for 15 years at that point in time. And I was like, 4 years isn't going to give me very much. So I decided that at that point, before all of this came to that I needed to try to start something that I could transition into that could do that. So
what we realized was all that control that we thought we had, all of that planning we thought we had done, all of the moves that we had made strategically at the advice of the financial planners, and all of these things together, everything that we had done didn't actually net the result in the end that mattered to us. Like it fell way short of what we needed to have.
And quite frankly, you know, my kids' college was paid for, but they were all small. They were in like first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade at that moment in time. And it was a little wake-up call that says, okay, I still have to get them through high school. I still have to be able to feed everybody, keep everybody in their activities, keep things stable if something should destabilize in the family with Kip being gone. And all of that was, as you said, the wake-up call, right? The time that it was like, well, shoot, I really need to get my butt in gear and really look at it. And that was where the journey really started. And what we ultimately found, or at least what I found, is that you have to keep going. Even if you have roadblocks that are blocking you, you have to keep searching for the thing that works, because ultimately you will get more out of it if you don't just jump on the first thing and ride it into the ground. If it's just not working, you're either not in that right space or it's not the right thing. And so there was a lot of that actually happened, almost a year's worth of all of that transpired before we really felt like we found an avenue that we could start with and work fairly well for both of us in that particular regard.
And that really led to the third option, which is our together life at this point in time, designing it the way we want. One of the things that we got very passionate about, and this is getting a little vulnerable here for a second, our kids are special needs kids. They, you know, they're all ADHD, they have sensory processing disorder and things like that, which a fancy way, you know, everybody's on a spectrum. And so the term is way overused these days. But what happens is, you know, you've got autism way over here and you got what normal, quote unquote, way over on this side.
Neurological, typical neurological.
You have Asperger's right there. Sensory processing is the next stage right above Asperger's. So think of it as really, really high functioning Asperger's. And so with that, what we found through all of our exploration, all of the different things that we've done is your physical space that you're in has an incredible impact on your psychology, your temperament, your moods, all of those kinds of things. So Laura has started to specialize and really dial into what matters. How do you create an environment that for some kids, they are sensory seeking? That does not mean you want them in a calm environment. That means they need to be in a kind of a chaotic, exciting, and
well, if you put them in a calm environment, let's say they will be like the little puppy in your household that's brand new that chews up every single piece of shoes, furniture, and all those types of things, and you will be in chaos, right? It was a sense of survival for me for years on how can I get my environment, right? What can you control? I can't control every little thing about my children's neurological senses, right? I can help them with their diet. I can help them with their area, their space. I can help them with coping skills that I can learn along the way. I can help them with myself being able to understand that better. But I can't necessarily control everything for them. But in that process, I did spend a lot of time trying to develop up space.
1 second, we've got someone off mute.
Better. Before we get started, though, I wanted to
know where that
guys
went.
something cool. Who here knows what NFC is?
Who is talking?
Woohoo!
I'm so confused where that's coming
new
from.
every day.
We're gonna find it though. I'm gonna close tabs. I have no idea how.
Could be worse.
Oh, it was the live stream from yesterday. That's so funny. Okay. I still had that tab up from yesterday because we were watching a class. I was like, oh my gosh, who's speaking? It was Jay Stark. Jay, I love that.
At least it was good. Jay's a good guy to listen to.
He's a good guy.
It's one of those things, the voices in your head, you know, now it's the voices in your computer that are talking to you type of thing.
I love it because I lost my train of thought. So let's come back to your sensory stuff. Talk us about how you can control your environment and
so through all of this discovery, what we found was when we started to change the environment, the colors, the furniture, the pictures, the various different aspects that make up a designed room, you can change people's mood swings. So what we found is you certain rooms you want to have energy, certain rooms you want to have calm, certain rooms you want to have this, and that is where we really started to specialize, was go down that path.
And it's all really individual, right? I mean, this is the challenge. Everybody wants to make a one size fits all type of scenario, and it's really not that.
Yeah.
And so it's understanding. First of all, we or me got to really start understanding my own family's personal needs when it came to that, including my own. It's weird when you have children with special needs, you start realizing and understanding more about yourself than you probably have ever understood before, because guess what? Genetics are not just random.
Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree kind of thing.
Type of thing. And so, we started identifying our own. And for me, it was easier for me to identify my own and then realize how that also connected with other people's, right? And so, the spaces, I mean, we started by remodeling spaces, creating spaces, designing actual homes and layouts. I do that as a hobby. It's something I enjoy doing. But I also, through all this process and as the journey progressed, eventually learned that I see in pictures, right? And for me, I can see what that is ahead of time, what I want that room to feel like, look like. And then I just go until I visually find the right things and are like, okay, there it is. And I put it all together.
It's unbelievable to see this happen, because I just can't. I can do what I'm told. I can put the room together really well. I swing a hammer. I do anything you need. But man, that vision part, that's unique. That is truly a gift.
And what is funny is I would be like, so what do you want in it? And he's like, I don't know. I just want this. I just want to be able to relax, or I just want to be able to do such and such, right?
Yeah, I knew the feeling that I would want in a space.
And so then I had to figure out what that might look like, how that might feel, how it coordinated with other spaces. And ultimately, it was a little bit of a guessing game along the way until we found different things and we realized that what we really loved in this space at this moment in time in this home did not necessarily translate the exact right way. And why did that happen? So I have a lot of whys. I'm like the little kid that's like, why?
I know. No, that's great. Let me ask you guys this, because I think you're strategically and creatively able to answer this. When you are thinking about what's next in my life, if you're really going to design your life and you want to be like, hey, I'm a transactional engineer. I'm someone that's going to put my life together the way that I want to, all the deals. What is that next step for you when you're saying, here's where I want to go. Now, how do I figure out how to design my life? How do you guys do that? What's your GPS like, I guess, in your life? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's such a fantastic question, because that's the thing. There's a lot of podcasters out there, a lot of YouTube kind of stuff, a lot of books, a lot of things that are always showing you how great things can be. What they typically fall short on is, how do you go from where you are to where you want to get to? Yeah. It starts with understanding and admitting where you are. I think that's the biggest one. One of the stuff that we work with, I know you work with Woody a lot with the drive system. I think that's phenomenal. There's a lot of different models out there that can work, but it's really figuring out a model that helps you self-evaluate, find out where you are today. Because that if you don't know where you are today, you don't actually know what the next step needs to be.
Exactly.
And so once you figured that out, the step that you take is you have to we call it kind of be, do, have. You know the have. You have a want with the have. But in order to have something, you have to become someone that does something to have the results. And I know you've talked to, we do this a lot with Greg Kimball, man. What a phenomenal guy that guy is.
I love that guy.
For this kind of thing. But you have to figure out where you are so that you know what you have to become in order to go do the things that will get you what you want to have. And I think that's the important first step.
Yeah.
And once you have some self-awareness of you, right, type of scenario, what do you like? What do you want? You really have to get true with yourself. You can't just go with the superficial, I want money, or,
Right.
yes, but what do I want after it? And I've actually gotten this recently, which is kind of interesting, of asking yourself why 5 times about something, but understanding the why ultimately will lead you in whatever direction that you need to be, right? Type of scenario. And along the way, the transactional part of it is to take steps every single moment. Like, don't assume that somebody else is going to do something. You really need to take a step to determine what the next step will be, because you can't take 50 steps in your mind without taking the first step that you actually need to do, type of scenario. So being a transactional engineer is simply starting the steps. For us, when we got started, he was working, W-2, we were paying through the nose in taxes. So for us, even though we were getting into real estate and we were doing that, it wasn't about the first deal. It was, let's figure out how to get the money that we currently have and keep more of it so that we can then utilize it the way that we want to utilize it.
Yeah. So from an actual implementation and a true strategic, do this first. Take your existing finances and find out where your revenue is leaking out of your system. We're losing money in interest. We're losing money in taxes. We're losing money in that subscription that you haven't used in 3 years, but you still have it because you forget about it. It's understanding, and I personally hate budgets. I just do. It's too controlling, but you really do actually need to go through your budget and see where your money is leaving, and can you start holding some of that? Because you need to acquire a little bit of cash flow in order to then go direct it to a new avenue that's pointed in the direction you want to go. So from a tactical implementation standpoint, do that first.
Yeah, you think that, like, if you have a bucket that has all these holes in it, you're like, oh shoot, there's only so much water you can get to the location you want to put out the fire. You actually need to plug some of those holes in the bucket or get a new bucket, right?
Yeah, exactly. Once you have the holes plugged and you've figured out what you've got to work with, now you need to see, is what you have to work with big enough, or do you need to find another water source in your analogy there? Yeah. And so we just learned something actually down at the Eclipse event. We were down in Dallas a couple weeks ago. And man, that was so cool. Talk about magical, that event. But one of the speakers down there, George Bryant, I don't know if you're familiar with George at all.
George is awesome. I'm going to have him on my podcast pretty soon.
Oh, dude, that's going to be so good. You guys are going to love talking with him. But he had a framework around kind of how you start building your plan, and he gets full credit for this, but I'm going to totally steal it here, because that's what you do. But he compartmentalizes a process for building and creating and moving forward with a plan. And the first part is, he calls it the builder phase. Or not the builder phase, the dreaming phase. So the first one it's the dreaming phase, and in that dreaming phase, write down, put on a whiteboard, get a small group of people, focus group together, and just talk about any idea out there that you have, because all ideas are really cool and can be brought to fruition and can help you move towards you designing the life that you want. And so in there's some rules around this. You can't say no to any idea. You can't go into, how am I going to do that, or criticize, or it can't be done because of this or that. This is dream. Put your dream hat on. So everything, write down all of it. And once you've got all these really cool ideas, then the best thing, you need to change state. You need to move to a different phase. You need to get up physically, go run around the building, do some jumping jacks, do something, and come back to a new location. Even if it's just 2 chairs down on a table, just physically change where you're doing, what you're doing with that mental break. Because now what you do is you'll move into what they call the build phase. The build phase is, okay, the only question you're allowed to ask yourself is, how could I accomplish one of the things that you did in the dream phase? You cannot say anything but, how could you do it? And then you write down all the things. If the software isn't there, well, you could design new software for it. If you don't have the money, well, you could go raise money, with people. If you don't have the skill set, well, you could go find that skill set.
Yeah, it's not about the word can, it's about the word could. So psychologically, there's differences between I can or I can't. We think of it in that black and white mode, where could opens up the door to possibilities.
Yeah, how could you? That's a great point.
And so, it's a lot about that. But then, as Kip says, you once you get through and kind of exhaust where all of those pieces are, now you've got to go in and you've got to change state again, go around, whether it's another day, whether it's the same day in a different location, but you've just got to physically change what you're doing and then go into your critic mode. Okay, where are the holes? What are the things that I need to be looking out for? Where are the problems that might arise, and how, all of those
find out some
things.
ways to mitigate that.
And then, ultimately coming back into the how could I solve those problems? Can they be solved? Could they be solved by people? Could they be solved by ideas? Could they be solved by, things, right? Type of scenario, locations. You just have to start doing that. And the framework allows you to just walk through processes,
every idea, everything that you want to do. And if you can do that consistently over and over again, you will have a roadmap to get to here's what you wanted to have at the very beginning that you asked yourself.
So it's part of being transactional, right? Transactional is doing, right? It's taking steps along the way and being able to actually transact something. So it's transacting the ideas that you want to do to be able to go through and design the life. So first of all, what are the things that you would like to design? Do you want to design financial setups? Do you want to design emotional setups? Do you want to design what it is? And
design time freedom.
All of those things.
Anything. Design
seems in people's minds, all of a sudden they're thinking interior design and houses, right? They forget that there actually is some design that actually works with all of the pieces of your life. Heck, you could even design your physical experience, physical look, and whether it's through clothes, whether it's through losing weight, whether it's through any of those things.
Get on an exercise regime like Ron Williams.
Step up through all of that, right? But then you go into the how. What is it that I would like to design? What is my dream look like type of scenario? And that's biggest problem a lot of people have is that
they stopped.
They don't even know what a dream is anymore. We've talked to a lot of people, and sometimes when you ask them what are they most passionate about or what is their biggest dream, that they're blank. They totally lose the possibilities of what that is, because all they can think about is, what am I going to get to my next vacation? How am I going to pay the next bill? How am I going to pay the next bill? All of those different things. So those are the steps that really help you start doing it faster, because you're now taking specific steps and taking the time to work through those specific steps, whether it's on a walk that you're doing or whether you're actually just physically sitting down and doing it. It doesn't really matter, but you need to have some of those as a basis before anything really progresses. Otherwise, it's just chaos, jumble, and it doesn't really happen, right? It's easy to put it aside.
Let me share one idea really quick that just popped up. I was like, man, this is actually one of the reasons why I'm no longer teaching in my previous capacity was if you're around people that are always filling up their bucket, and that bucket's really little, even though there's like little holes in it, maybe it doesn't even have very many holes. It's like one or two small, right? But the bucket is tiny.
Yes.
It will not put out the fire that you want to.
That's right. Right.
Serve you the way that you want. I realized very early on in my career, I was like, man, after doing this, I can see exactly what my money's going to look like for the next 30 years. I wouldn't even make $1 million over the entire span of my career. That's gross, not net.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, this vehicle is actually not going to take me where I want to go. Sometimes we strap ourselves to a vehicle that is not actually serving us, right? We're so tight to this little bucket that we're like, but it's working. It has water in it. We're like trying to put out the fire. And then I looked at real estate and I was like, oh, I had a friend recently that made net on a profit, net profit on a deal over $1 million. Bill Credibon, he talked about it a couple months ago about how this happened. Now, results are not typical, to be that clear. Yes.
We want those hashtags though. We do.
Absolutely.
We all like them.
I want to be not typical like that. That's a great result.
Yeah.
But that vehicle of real estate, people start to oops out a lot more $100,000 checks than any teacher I know.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last teacher I said that accidentally made an extra $100,000 by going to work.
Yeah, and real estate's got risk. I'm not trying to say to people that it doesn't, but we've done everywhere. We have lost money in real estate. That has happened, but we've also made over $500,000 on one transaction. Again, results not typical.
Not typical.
But it's there. And you ask yourself, what was the difference? This was actually a really cool exercise Laura and I did. Because before we found, we hooked up with Renatus and, took that with all you guys and everything. Before we really, truly took education in this investing world of real estate seriously, we had made some mistakes, and that's where we lost quite a bit of money. We were just making choices. One time we did incredibly awesome and got the bug for this. And the next time we turned around and it should have actually done a whole lot better, but it didn't. This one won a bunch of money in the middle of 08, by the way, in that crash. We made a ton of money here. And then 2014, when everything, even Montana, had recovered by then, this one lost a ton of money, and we really didn't understand why. And so when we got on this journey and took it seriously, it's that knowledge, it's that ability we became something. There, we're going back to that first one. We became somebody very different. We became real estate investors with the knowledge to go recognize deals, negotiate deals, and then execute on the plan to go turn around and make profit on them.
But the biggest thing is that you can make $1 million on a deal. It is totally possible. But if you don't have a plan and you haven't designed out the overall of your life in the sense of how does your finances work? What are you going to do next with it? All of that, that money can disappear faster than you got it, and that's the challenge. When we got our lump sum, we had another tax bill that we had to figure out how that we were going to avoid doing that. And with the education that we had, we were able to connect with the right people that were able to give us the right tools to be able to then figure out how to actually make that a tax-free event and lock all that money in to grow. And then we still have access to it so that we can go out and do more things with it. Ultimately, taking just a one-time event became
forever
something
event.
Well, a forever event, but also one that we could use in multiple ways. Like it did multiple things for us, not just one thing for us. And I love doing that part. I love trying to find how many different ways can this thing actually work for us and do that type of scenario.
It wasn't just profit we took on a deal. It became a revolving line of credit for us. So now we have that to be able to use over and over and over again at a moment's notice. So it's never really not there. And it's phenomenal when you really understand how true money and wealth work.
Yeah. And when I had Eric Counts on my podcast a couple months ago, he talked about how every single time you have credit, it is a cushion.
Yes.
It's something that you have as something that you can take and utilize or not. But if you use it, great. If you don't, great.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think is really helpful with this overarching idea of designing our lives is it's not just about making money. That's one element of it. You absolutely do. But you want to make that money mean something. You want to make a difference in your life. You want to live your life's purpose. And sometimes we get people that are so narrow-minded in their business or in their life that they're like, this is all that I am. Like when you ask someone, hey, what do you do what do you do? Or who are you? And they only talk about their job when I like to talk to people like you guys that you're like, oh, I do so much. And you share your why and you're passionate about things. And it's not just about your business. It's about all these different elements of your life. So let's talk about in the last 5-6 minutes here, when you're designing your life, what are the things that you've been very conscientious to cut out so that you can get rid of the likes so you can focus on the things you love?
Wow, that's phenomenal. Yeah, that's really good. One of our mentors, Bob Snyder, he said he has a generally speaking out there. So people, if you haven't really listened to any of his generally speakings, I would highly recommend those two. They're just phenomenal little nuggets of golden bars. They're not even nuggets; they're golden bars.
Golden bars, I love it.
In there. But one of them very specifically talked about how you have to sometimes give up some of the things that you like. He uses the word love, but it's really more of the things that you really like to do so that you can focus on the tasks that are needed to get it all back in abundance later. And so that it goes to the question you just kind of asked there. Some of the things that we had to give up, like we do a lot less, I would say we focused a lot of our activities on the ones that mattered. We used to have just a ton of just little things that we did all over the place, but we focused it on the ones that mattered. We focused family time. So we go and do trips that are very specific and focused with the family. We converted a lot of our travel into tax write-offs because our family are on our board of advisors. Yeah, nailed
when
it.
you go to Disneyland and you have a board of advisor meetings, you know, your kids when they're in middle grade school and that kind of stuff are like, what are we doing? And you explain it and they get into it. They have moments to give you their opinions about how the business should go and where they should go with that.
Right. And then I would say one of the toughest things we did, and this one's going to be a hard pill for most people to swallow. There were a lot of friends that we had that were not supportive of our decisions to move away from the whole corporate, get a standard, steady paycheck, all that kind of stuff. Basically said they were crazy, including family members that did this. You know, we didn't say that we didn't X them out entirely, like never communicate with them again, but we just don't hang out with them anymore. We stopped hanging out with all of the people that are not supportive of where we wanted to go. And we created a new friend group that is very supportive of what we do. And that was tough. It was hard for some people to take. There's actually a couple people in that friend group that haven't talked to us in years because of it. And that's a tough pill. But I have to say that the other side of that, I feel so much better hanging around people that are become new, just absolutely incredible friends like you. Brigham is a great example. I love hanging out with you because you're always smiling and happy and like you're one of the coolest guys I know. And we've created new friendships like this that uplift us.
Yes.
For an example on this one, and this one I'm going to share because it in my mind is the quintessential when people are doing something different, the conflict that you might have, especially with family, right? And not all families, sometimes they're your biggest critics about what you're doing type of scenario. And so one of my sisters, I was showing my hair, you know, because I always tell everybody I've got all sorts of real estate. I use it in all avenues. It doesn't have to necessarily be brick and mortar, right? And so I was showing my purple hair and I was showing the designs that I had put into it. And she's like, what's up with the shaved head? You know, I grew up in a very conservative, small town, farming and ranching community. You didn't shave your head for nothing, right? You had long, beautiful, straight hair. You put it up in ponytails and you just, that's the existence that we were in. And I was like, am doing this. And she's like, what's up with that? And I was like, well, we're going to be doing a few things and, you know, that kind of stuff. And she's like, well, aren't I one of your five? Because I was like, well, I'm hanging out with the five people that, you know, we're closest to. And she's like, well, aren't I one of your five? And I was like, no. And it was shocking to her. Like it shocked her to the core. Yeah. She's like, whoa, what do you mean? And I said, she's like, well, I still love you. And I'm like, absolutely. You are family. You will always be family. But that doesn't mean that you are one of the five people that I hang around with the most. There is a difference. And it takes nothing away from her. I will always do everything. I will always be there for her. I will always do all of those things, but she is not one of my five average people that I spend the most time with. And she was like, oh, well, I can accept that. It was a reassociation a little bit, but because we were family and we had been a very close family for a very long time, we were just so used to our family being our core because we didn't have a lot of people outside. We were a little odd. We did things a little differently. We thought differently than a lot of the people in our environment at that time. And so for that realization to happen, that it's like, yes, I have different people that I spend more time with. And in doing that, I am doing different things. And it doesn't mean that I have to accept your way of looking at things anymore, but we will always be family. I will always love you, and I will always be there for you, and those types of things. That relationship is not necessarily having to be the same as the 5 people that I spend the most time with.
And then I would say,
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, then no, finish your, because you had a comment.
I was going to say this is reminding me of an analogy that it was actually an experience in Cancun that we had. Did you guys do the zip line? Like that little thing where you had to walk, or it was the ropes course. Sorry, the zip line, but the ropes course. You have these 2 carabiner things, and you have to attach them to this line, and then you're walking across like these tires and the things, and you go up, and you just keep going up all these different levels. And I realized that a lot of our relationships in life are just like that. They serve us for a time, but for us to go to that next level, we actually have to disconnect at times and then go to the next level, next level. And it's not like you didn't enjoy and love those people. They're still part of your life. They're part of your story, but you're like, well, this is where I'm going.
Yep.
And if you don't want to go there, that's fine, but I'm going to be going this way.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect analogy too, because you can't just disconnect one clip here and leave the other tethered down there. You got to, yeah, exactly, because it'll continually pull you back. You've got to actually disconnect both and get it over here. But here's a trick on that one. This is actually, I love this analogy, because on that one, you have to do it one at a time. You can't take them both off. One is always connected, so you ground it. Yep. And as soon as you have that next piece, now go.
Exactly.
And now go. Don't just don't run out, quit your job today to go do this right now. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Do it in parallel. And when this is now connected and solid, now you can disconnect and go. I love that analogy. That's
so good. And it's one of those things that when we use an analogy like that, you're still tethered to something that's helping you.
Yes.
Because you could go backwards if you really wanted to. I mean, it's a little more dangerous to go backwards. I don't think most of us want to do that. But if we know where we want to go, like this is a simple ropes course analogy, you want to go and complete that course.
Yep.
There are going to be difficult things. Like I remember there was one lady that she was in front of me, and there was this tire. When she got on the tire, it was swinging really far, and she's like, I am so done. And she ended up coming 1 or 2 steps back and then climbing down. And I was like, huh, that's what's going to take you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to take me out. Just because you see somebody else fail in real estate, fail in business, that doesn't mean that you also have to fail.
Right.
That just is data for you. You're like, oh, that didn't work for her, or this didn't work for them. I wonder if there's another way around that, or can I think of where I want to go and actually take that next step to get there? So,
well, that's
last few moments. What is the encouragement that you could give brand new entrepreneurs? And you could also go if you have other ideas first, but what is that last little bit of encouragement that you can give someone that would make a huge difference?
Do always beats learning. Just go out and do it. You've got to have faith and belief in your own abilities. If you're struggling with that, then I would really encourage, go get some coaching, go get some education, get a mentor and these are not the free YouTube channel, guys. Like you're not going to get there, regardless of what people say. You'll spend so much time hunting around, cross-referencing, trying to find. That doesn't work for almost everybody. So I would say, if you're not confident in your own beliefs of your own abilities, that, go find the people that can help you do that.
Yeah. And confidence really comes from taking the steps that that allow you to have results. Because even if they're really small steps, the result that you have will build your confidence. And if you are not feeling confident in where you are, take a lot of little small steps, and that confidence builds. And then the steps get bigger and they grow more. And you understand where you need to go next. Sometimes people try to take a leap and then they're not confident. And all of a sudden something doesn't work right and they don't know how to fix it because they took such a big leap that they fall backwards farther than where they started. And then they're afraid to even get back to where they started again. So ultimately, and it's little steps, and there's nothing wrong. You have a big accomplishment with taking a little step as you will do with the big. It's just, we look at it as not being the, oh my gosh, I didn't make $100,000 on my first deal and I didn't do it in 2 weeks after I got started. Like, what is wrong with me? I'm a total failure. And, for us, for that instance, it was literally having a conversation with a bank to understand what types of things that we can. That was a step. And it was a step that led to another step, that led to another step, that led to another step, which allows us to get to where we are now, where we feel like we can solve just about any problem that arises. They just get to be bigger steps, right? And so now they're bigger steps that we're taking because we've made all these small steps to build the confidence to where we are.
Another way to think about it, if you think about courses and vectors, if you know where you want to go out there, you've got this goal and desire, and you're kind of not pointed at it there, your trajectory, like your analogy was perfect with your old teaching career. It wasn't going to get you where you needed to go. You wanted to be over here, and that was taking you to here somewhere. Well, if you just do a small little course correction at the beginning, a couple degrees, now you start working that. But if you took too big a thing, you're going to miss in the other direction. Exactly. So take those little steps, build the pathway to where you want to go with those small steps. That will, every single one, especially if you plant the foot, you saw this with Cassandra, that whole step thing at nationals. That was so good. Taking the same step over and over again. If you're just going to do the YouTube, even if you're just going to get coaches, but never actually do anything, you're just spinning the one foot. You're not actually planting and then taking that next step forward. So take those little steps. The smaller the step, the easier it is to take the next one. That's actually a really cool way to do it.
Confidence comes with that too. You take one step forward and then you take your next step forward. You don't have to think, now I'm going to take my 20th step. You're like, I'm still on step 2. Okay, now let's go to step 3. And Eric Counts talks about this. He says, don't jump the creek.
Yes.
Actually look and find the area in the creek that has those stepping stones and take that next step and then get your stabilization on that stepping stone. Now you're going to the next stepping stone. And you get across that creek. Whereas like, I'm going to take a running start and jump as hard as I can. And then sploosh, you're like, you just splash. Even if you get your feet on the other side, you're like, oh, and
back to go.
And don't forget along the way to celebrate is maybe a big word that you don't necessarily, but acknowledge the fact that the step happened and that you did it and that you give yourself the credit that you deserve, that you made the step and that you do that. Because so many times we take a lot of steps and then we forget how many steps we took to get to there. And then we only look at that result. And now we're again deflated because we feel like that step isn't as far as we want to go, but we didn't acknowledge to ourselves and accept the fact that we took all these steps and that was good. Like none of that was bad. We were making all these steps. And so a lot of times, as I said, before, too big of steps, right? We jump that. Even if we made that, we lose all the space in between. And that's what makes us always feel deflated because we don't think that we made the next biggest one instead of finding the positivity that we have at every step along the way and saying, you know what? I have done a lot so far. I still got a long ways to go, but look at where all the things that I've done to this point to get there.
Lots of people have said it, but I'm going to credit Martin Luther King because he's the one that said it the most, I think. He says you don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take that first step. And what I really love about that is every single time you take a step, your view is changed. You're elevated a little bit. You see things a little bit different. Take the time at each step to look around and enjoy that moment, because that was an accomplishment that you just took that step.
That's a great way to summarize everything that we just talked about. I thank you so much, guys, for being on today. It has been a pleasure. I don't want it to end. Guys, thank you. You're the first guest I've had on twice. So awesome. If you guys missed their first one, go. It's called Mindstorm. It's freaking awesome. But always a pleasure to have some heartbeats that we get to share. Love you guys. So excited to see where we're going to go in the next few years, because we're designing our lives, and we have a trajectory that we're going to keep crossing paths as often as possible.
Yes.
Excited to see you guys in Wyoming.
Speaking of which, we actually just added another event. We are going to be speaking in Detroit, May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd. So if people are in the area can get there, it's going to be a final percent event there. So we would encourage everybody, if you want to get there, it's going to be so cool.
That is so cool. Well, thank you so much. I'll have to get a little bit more of those details, put them in the show notes for us. And man, it'll be so awesome to spend some more time with you guys. Appreciate you guys. If you want some more Leveling Up content, continue to like and subscribe on YouTube. And as always, we love you. God bless. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.